This may sound like a cliche, but it indeed is a true honor and privilege for me to share this platform with the true pioneers of green ship recycling. These are the gentlemen and the countries and the institutions they represent that have introduced sustainable ship recycling to the world. Our planet owes enormous gratitude to them for their contributions to the groundbreaking Hong Kong Convention and the subsequent development of HKC certified yards in China, India, Turkey, and now Bangladesh. Norway originated the process. Post-ratification, Japan demonstrated outstanding leadership and the will to raise recycling standards by bringing all stakeholders together in countries where it truly mattered the most. Today, when the world is full of negative and often fake news regarding sustainable recycling, for the first time, GMS brings these innovators. I truly call them innovators. I would like to call them weed whackers because they have cleared the path for the rest of us. And so together, these innovators will tell us their story and a vision for the future. Let me introduce this illustrious panel to you. My first speaker is, you don't touch it, is Mr. Sveinung Oftedal. He's a specialist director in the Norwegian Ministry of Climate and Environment, focusing on the international negotiations on environmental regulations for the maritime sector. He has also been working with these issues in the Norwegian Maritime Directorate, and for several years has been acting as Norwegian head of delegation to the IMO at the MEPC and several IMO diplomatic conferences. He has been heavily involved in negotiations on the hot topics at the IMO, such as greenhouse gas emissions, air pollution, and other issues addressed in MARPOL, ship recycling, ballast water management, anti-fouling systems, and other environmental issues for over 2 decades. He's a key person in Norwegian green ship recycling policies. He has also been involved in regional cooperation in the EU, such as the ESSF and other relevant international arenas for cooperation on green shipping. I have known Sveinung for a while, where he was visiting India, and welcome on board for this. Next I have is Mr. Imai-san. Mr. Imai-san has a master's in engineering in naval architecture and ocean engineering at the University of Tokyo, where he started his career in the Ministry of Transport, currently MLIT, in 1996. He has engaged in the development of a wide variety of maritime policies regarding shipbuilding, development policies, as well as ship safety and marine environmental protection. He also has an international experience as a shipbuilding economist at the OECD and alternate permanent representative of Japan to the IMO. As a negotiator, he participated in many international conferences, including IMO, UNFCCC, and OECD. Welcome, Mr. Imai-san. Next, I have a person who we have all known for a very long time, Mr. Keiji Tomoda-san. Mr. Tomoda-san started his career with K-Line in 1982. He was involved in container car carrier business sectors, setting up K-Line-owned agencies in the UK, while stationed in London for 6.5 years and Vietnam, arranging investment container terminals and handling alliance issues. Mr. Tomoda became general manager of Global Operations Centers for K-Line container fleet and equipment in Singapore, while he was in UK. In 1920, his career was extended to corporate and planning and maritime affairs at K-Line's Tokyo head office. Having dual responsibilities as member of Japanese Shipowners Association since 2010, he's now in charge as chairman of the Ship Recycling Committee of Japan Shipowners Association. Mr. Tomoda has worked past 7 years to address ship recycling issues at GSA and Asian Shipowners Associations, with periodical visits to various ship recycling yards, yard operators, and concerned government parties in China, India, etc. Mr. Tomoda currently holds the title of Associate Director of K-Line. Welcome, Tomoda-san. Next I have is Dr. M. Abdul Rahim. Dr. Rahim started his career with Cochin Shipyard, building Panamax bulk carriers and the first generation of double hull tankers after graduating from Cochin University of Science and Technology. Upon receiving his master's and doctoral degrees in ship structures from Hiroshima University in Japan, he joined Class NK in Tokyo and worked for Class NK ever since for the past 27 short years. He had long stints in Japan, Singapore, London, and Mumbai, and is currently the managing director for the Middle East and South Asia, based in Class NK Dubai office. He is responsible for Class NK's ship recycling activities in India and Bangladesh. Dr. Rahim joined RENA and the Marine Engineering Science and Technology. He won an award in 2004 from Imarest and the Stanley Gray Medal in 2005 for his works on the development of advanced structural rules, which was the forerunner of IX Common Structural Rules. He represented Japan in ISO STEP development program and was a member of several national programs in Japan and IX working groups. He has published more than 70 technical papers, mainly on ship structures. He's a chartered engineer and a chartered marine engineer and a fellow of the Institute of Marine Engineering Science and Technology in UK and the Royal Institution of Naval Architects in UK, RENA, UK. Welcome, Dr. Hain. And Dr. Michaelis, finally. Dr. Nikos Michaelis heads the monitoring of developments in the regulatory regime within the ship recycling industry. He provides a proactive and strategic approach to manage headline risks and building a positive reputation for the industry. As a member of the IMO, he played a significant role in the development of Hong Kong Convention for the safe and environmentally sound ship recycling of ships. During his tenure as head of the Marine Pollution Prevention and Ship Recycling section, Dr. Michaelis authored a book titled The Recycling of Ships, aimed at mitigating the gaps in the public's understanding of the functional and economic aspects of the ship recycling. Welcome, Dr. Michaelis. So all of this is the formal introduction. From a personal scale, having been in this industry for about 20 decades, we have I have personally known all of these players for a very long time and the work they have done in the area of ship recycling. And I truly mean from the bottom of the heart that we are always critical of various things we do, but I've never met such a good team of people who truly have been very concerned about ship recycling and has done great, great work in what they've done. So what I'm gonna let them do is speak. I'm gonna start with Mr. Svein Jung. The way we're gonna do is he's gonna share a few slides and the rest of the speakers will share a few slides. Subsequently, we will have a Q&A. All of you who have any questions, I'm gonna try to monitor these questions. I must admit, we have a lot of grounds to cover. I will not be able to address all these questions, but we will be recording your questions and sending it to the speakers, and hopefully we will have them respond to you. So bear with us, and Mr. Oftedal, on to you. If you probably need to unmute your mic while you're up. We see a slide, but you're on mute. The joys of there you
unmute.
Go. Yep.
Okay. And then good. We are on track. I see. I just want to show it like this. Now you should see it on the full screen. Thank you very much for this kind introduction and for inviting me to deliver a presentation at this important seminar. Indeed, ship recycling is very close to my heart, and it has been a very important issue for Norway for several years. Let's go back to the late 90s. In the late 90s, it became evident that it was a need to take action on ship scrapping. That was a term which we used in those days, ship scrapping. So I'm gonna present how we went from ship scrapping to ship recycling and present what are the key actions for securing safe and environmentally sound recycling of ships globally. So that is the topic of my presentation. And in doing that, you cannot avoid Japan, because Japan came in very early. Actually, the first time Japan came in on ship scrapping was when we had the accelerated phase out of single hull tankers, because after the Exxon Valdez, where Japan actually took the initiative to say that we need to have enough scrapping capacity in order to ensure that the single hull tankers could be phased out. So that was in the mid 90s, but in the late 90s, the issue came up internationally because of two main issues. One, it got some media attention, and that is quite true. The newspaper Baltimore Sun actually got the Pulitzer Prize on publishing stories on ship demolition. And the other topic which happened was that under the so-called Basel Convention, which is regulating transboundary movement of hazardous waste, the EU had a regulation. They adopted a regulation which by in effect included the so-called ban amendment, meaning the prohibition under the Basel Convention, which prohibited export of hazardous waste from OECD countries to non-OECD countries. So that issue then was EU law, and because of that, ship scrapping was addressed. Is this under the scope, yes or no? And in the EU framework, they said, yes, it is under the scope. So we needed to do something on a global scale to have this up and functioning. So Japan was very early in taking a position that on the to establish a global viewpoint that this issue needed to be addressed globally, because it was not certain that we could have global acceptance, that we need to have a global framework or global discussion on the issue. But Japan was very early in taking responsibility to ensure that that happened. Now, the next issue is how should this be addressed, and where should it be addressed? Meaning we could have several opportunities in addressing this globally. I have already referred to the Basel Convention. Was that the appropriate place to address it? Meaning that is transboundary movement of hazardous waste. Would it be appropriate to address it within the ILO framework, which is then addressing labor interest and labor concerns to ensure safe working environments for workers? Or should it be the IMO to address the issue? And clearly, Japan also was very clear that this is a part of the shipping framework. We actually have regulations to require what kind of ships are going into the market, and we also need to establish requirements when ships are going out of the market. And what is important when ships are constructed may have an effect when ships go out. Meaning, for instance, we have prohibitions, for instance, on asbestos, which is an important aspect also when it comes to ship recycling. So clearly, Japan was very important and was crucial in order to ensure that the IMO was the right place to address this issue. Now, I have shown you here some pictures on my slide. The picture on the left I have taken myself because I've been to Chittagong several times. And this is one of my photos from the early days at Chittagong, and you can see that, well, this is a normal situation. at Chittagong many years ago. And then I had a red arrow leading into Hong Kong, which is then the conference center at the Hong Kong, where we in 2009 adopted the Hong Kong Convention. And then you can see a green arrow down to another facility at Chittagong, which is then the present day situation, clearly showing that huge difference is now taking place and huge upgrade has been taking place in several of the recycling facilities. Now, so back again to the development of the global framework, it is very important that we have a global level playing field, that we can avoid that the requirements have a possibility for circumvention, that it is possible for the shipping industry to prepare for clean recycling, and that it is possible for the green recycler to actually have proper recycling of the ship entering into the facilities. So therefore, the experience and knowledge of IMO on shipping and the experience and knowledge of Japan when it comes to shipping regulations and when it comes to environmentally sound recycling in general. I have also personally been visiting recycling facilities in Japan on environmental friendly recycling of other kind of issues, other kind of call it not ships, but other kind of entities like. So I've seen this in Japan myself. So we managed to then negotiate on this one at the IMO, and in doing this, we managed in 2009 to adopt a convention. It has been communicated for quite some time that in doing this, we have had active participation by many member states, but a leading role clearly was taken by Japan in doing the proper work. After the adoption of the Hong Kong Convention in 2009, we actually experienced quite firm actions by the Japanese government and industry in promoting the convention. Because one thing is adopting a convention, another thing is to have it up and working. And in order to have it up and working, you need to have it into force. IMO member states need to ratify and be a part of the convention. That is when you can have the real difference made because of the convention. What we have actually seen is actually the process at the IMO and the fact that the convention is established have actually triggered action within the various industries, within the shipping industry and within the recycling industry. So it has already have an effect, but the real effect, the real job the convention can do can only be taken when it is into force. Then it can be enforced properly by governments. So we saw early action by Japan in order to promote the convention. We have seen how they have worked through their embassies. We have seen how they have worked specifically in order to encourage their industry to follow the requirements of the convention. We have seen actually also that Japan, of course, they have ratified the convention. So they have everything in place. In addition to that, it has been important to engage directly with the recycling states. Japan, of course, is not only a ship-owning nation, it is also a very important shipbuilding nation. So looking into the main tonnage in the world, you actually have 3 main shipbuilding countries. So ships are being built in Japan, in Korea, and in China. Also in other countries, but that is the main volume. When it comes to ship recycling, you also have some key states, some main states. The big volumes are in Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. and also previously China, of course, have large volumes. And when it comes to the number of ships, also Turkey has quite a significant amount of ships. But when it comes to the tonnage, of course, it is Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan. So in looking into how we can ensure that we have the intent of the convention to have environmentally sound and safe ship recycling, you need to engage directly with some of the key states. And Japan have done that with India, which has been very important because a lot of things have been happening in India since I was there first time in 2005, I guess. A lot of upgrades have been taking place. And I think it had not been possible to the same extent without the engagement of Japan. Now, we engage with Bangladesh as Norway, not to the same extent as Japan has been engaging with India, but we have actually done for many years and had cooperation with Bangladesh and supported them through technical cooperation activities. So we have now a project called SenseRec, which is now in the phase 3. And we have been working with Bangladesh so they can have their legislation in place, they can have their training of workers, they can have the knowledge on the management of hazardous waste. And now we are specifically working with the technical support, how they can have them facility for treatment and storage and disposal of hazardous waste. So we have engaged heavily with Bangladesh. And so the last question I have here, will cooperation with Bangladesh trigger the entry into force of the Hong Kong Convention? I do think so. I have experienced how the willingness of the government have been increasing in Bangladesh on this issue since the very start. To now, this is their main aim. They want to become a party to the Hong Kong Convention, and we would like to welcome Japan and other IMO member states to work closely with Bangladesh in order to ensure that this main recycling country can do this in an environmentally safe and sound way. So this is the main point of my presentation. Looking into this in a historic line, Japan has been there all the time, and I'm very certain that they will be there in the future as well. So I want to conclude my presentation now, saying thank you for attention so far. I look forward to the further debate and the presentation on this important web seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sveinung. That was brilliant. As I said, Norway played a big role in getting the ball rolling. And as we're gonna do in this presentation, we're gonna hand over the ball from Mr. Oftedal to Mr. Imai-san, his counterpart in Japan, who ran with it, and we have what he has done, particularly in India. So, Mr. Imai-san, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you very much. And first of all, I'd like to express my best appreciation to GMS and for organizing this very important web seminar on ship recycling at this very important timing. Hope you can see my slide. Is it okay?
And not yet.
Now I'd like to express my appreciation to Mr. Sveinung Oftedal for giving us very compliments to Japan for what we have done in the past. Can you see mine? Not yet?
Maybe we can do it from here. We don't see it yet.
Really? Just let me press again.
Yeah, if you do the share screen, that should help. And I think it's working. Yep. Yep. Now we see it.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about international rule and cooperation for sustainable ship recycling today. The contents of my presentation is firstly, importance of ship recycling, ship-specific international rules for recycling, and secondly, condition and status of Hong Kong Convention for its entry into force. And lastly, international cooperation for ship recycling states. That's my issue today. The first slide, why special international rules for ship is necessary. This first slide illustrates the states involved in a ship. When it's built, shipbuilding in the states are involved. When it's owning country, registry, operator, crew, ports, and in the end, recycling country has to be involved in this ship. And of course, when ship is exporting and importing, those shipper, exporter, consignee, importer are involved. So because of this complexity, rules for ship are developed at a specialized agency of the UN, International Maritime Organization. The principles of IMO is shown here. The first is non-discrimination. We have to develop a level playing field for shipping communities. And IMO intends to develop the highest practicable standards. The word practicable is very important for the IMO, what I think. And also for some regulation, technical cooperation would be necessary for the implementation, in particular for the developing countries. So at IMO, workable common international rules for ships are developed, enforced, and implemented for safety and protection of the environment. The next slide shows why the special international rules for ship recycling is necessary. This shows Basel Convention. It was adopted in 1989 and entered force in 1992. This convention controls transboundary movements of hazardous waste and their disposals. However, when it comes to ship, the controls of exports, imports under Basel Convention is not workable. As shown here, ships can navigate itself from the last port to the recycling yards. We don't know when ship becomes waste. It is clear that ship, if it's, as long as it's operating, it's not a waste, it's a ship. So the general international rule for transboundary movements under the Basel Convention is not workable for ships. So in 2004, COP7 of the Basel Convention invited IMO to consider the establishment of, in its regulation of mandatory requirements. Then, of course, before that, our IMO had already started this discussion, as Svani has already explained. IMO was doing their work, but as a formal invitation was given, finally in 2009, IMO adopted Hong Kong Convention in Hong Kong. I'm not going into the detailed history anymore, but I'd like to explain a few points about the convention. It was tailor-made for ship recycling to make it workable and enforceable under the IMO principles, what I explained in the previous slide. The ship has to develop inventory of hazardous materials to be forwarded to recycling yards. And it has to be surveyed by flag states during the life of the ship, including prior to recycling. And ship may be inspected by port states. By this, ships will be enforced under the convention. And the ship recycling yards has to develop ship recycling facility plan to be authorized by the competent authority. And it also has to provide ship recycling plan for each ship. So Hong Kong Convention not only covers environment protection through waste management, but also it maintains safety and training of workers. Now, next is the importance of Hong Kong Convention. It will not only improve safety and environment protection of ship recycling, but it also contribute to the sustainable development of maritime industry, as well as local and global economies through smooth recycling of ship replacements. The aged ships will be scrapped and recycled materials will be reused for development of local economy, and it will create local employment. And once ships are scrapped, new build ship will come into the market. Those new ships will have higher efficiency and higher safety. And of course, it has to emit less greenhouse gas. So at the shipbuilding nations, it will also benefit the economy and the employment. So this kind of circle is very important, and the Hong Kong Convention will facilitate this circle. The next is about the status of Hong Kong Convention for its entry into force. This convention has three main criteria for the entry into force. The first is contracting states. The above there's flags are shown. And I like to say that 9 countries has become a member last year, including Japan ourselves. And already 15 states has become the member. That means the first criteria has been met last year. The second criteria is the fleets. It has to meet 40% of the world's ships, world's merchant shipping in gross tonnage. And it already reached 29.5%. And it needs more than 10%, but I think it's not a much issue because if Liberia or Marshall Islands or some other flag states signs the convention, it can easily pass this criteria. The third one is the ship recycling capacity. It has to pass 3% of the fleet of the contracting states. The capacity means the maximum annual ship recycling volume during the preceding 10 years. This is a big issue, what I think. It needs at least one of the large ship recycling nations to sign the convention to exceed this level. So Bangladesh, China, Pakistan has to sign this convention. Otherwise, this convention will not enter into force. This shows the ship recycling volumes of the past. And you can see in 2012, there was a peak in ship recycling volume. And the maximum annual recycling volume during the preceding 10 years will decrease from now on. So unless there's another peak coming in, the third criteria will be difficult. It will become more difficult in the future. So I have to say that major ship recycling states have to sign the convention as soon as possible. I have to say in few years. The last is your technical operation for capacity building and ship recycling. A number of initiatives have been taking place to assist improvements of ship recycling yards in major ship recycling states through both public and private sectors. Japan and Norway is supporting the ship recycling states. We have supporting upgradation of the yards in India. We are providing $80 million loan to India. Norway is also supporting capacity building in Bangladesh. Class NK is providing technical advices and issuance of statement of compliance in accordance with Hong Kong Convention. 38 yards has already been issued. Class NK also issued the first SoC to a ship recycling facility in Bangladesh in January this year. Japanese ship owners associations are prioritizing using the Hong Kong Convention compliant yards. They are also visiting yards regularly in South Asia and providing technical cooperation. Federation of Basic Industry Workers Unions of Japan is providing financial assistance to establish training center for workers. These are all efforts so far, and it's still going on. And I think later there will be more detailed explanation, but I have to say that ship recycling in India have been significantly improved. Many yards are recycling ship in safe and environment manner in accordance with the convention's requirements. And I'd like to congratulate India for becoming a signatory of Hong Kong Convention at the end of last year. The last is the concluding remark. Hong Kong Convention is the only international framework that works for the sustainable ship recycling and maritime industry. Major ship recycling states must sign the convention as soon as possible to make it enter into force. Willingness of ship recycling states to sign the convention and further international cooperation are necessary for the success of the convention. Japan, in cooperation with others, will spare no efforts to this end. That's all. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, my son, for this very interesting conversation and showing how close we are to getting to reaching this adoption process. Now let's switch over a bit towards the industry from the other side, to the ship owners. It's a real privilege, Mr. Tomoda-san, to have you on board and share us your views on why the Japanese ship owners decided to take this enormous task and lead us and show the way towards the Hong Kong Convention and getting more yards greener. So the floor is yours, Mr. Tomoda-san.
Good morning and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Tomoda, Chair of the JSA Ship Recycling Committee. I am very honored to be here with Mr. Aftedal from Norway, who was the key driving force behind the adoption of the Hong Kong Convention. Mr. Imai from MLIT, representing the Japanese government, Dr. Mikelis, a major creator of the convention, and Mr. Rahim from NK, our close partner. I'd like to take this opportunity to briefly touch upon our journey in the past, as well as in the future for entry into force of the convention, together with distinguished guests. Yes, this slide touches upon the fact that the JSA represents 127 member companies in Japan and is one of the major members of ICS as well as ASA. In light of the fact that cradle to grave operations for vessels in their life cycle are mainly in Asia, we as a witness continue to take an active role toward the early entry into force of the Hong Kong Convention. I would like to introduce the first key word, which was always bear in mind when taking actions. That is, seeing is believing. With this philosophy, after the adoption of the convention, we voluntarily put the vessel up for our demonstration experiment of ship recycling in a modernized way at Muroran, Hokkaido, Japan, shown in the second picture from the left on page 2. Then we continued regular dialogue in China, India, and Bangladesh to appeal to them on how important it was that the convention should be effective and encourage them to upgrade their yards to meet the requirements of the convention. The first turning point was our visit to India with Japanese government and NK in 2000 2012. At that time, we recognized the solid momentum and enthusiasm toward green ship recycling in India through dialogue with representatives such as His Excellency Mr. Modi, the current Prime Minister, and SRIA, Ship Recycling Association of India, and labor unions. The purpose of our visit has been mainly to motivate all ship recycling parties to achieve green, sustainable ship recycling, as well as encouraging shipping companies to implement green ship recycling. This slide shows the history of JSA visit to India, where we continue dialogue with local partners. What is key for the improvement of ship recycling? We recognize that it is motivation among yard operators and workers, which is supported by joint working. As this slide shows, the JSA provides yard workers with the necessary equipment for safety training courses in Alang. Page 6, we started to look at Bangladesh from 2018 and joined the IMO workshop there. In the following year, the JSA had a visit there with JETRO and Class NK for visit to yards and hospital, as well as dialogue with Bangladesh government. I can find two different landscapes in Bangladesh now. One is as it looked like in India 10 years ago, and the other one is as it looks like in India now. I hope substandard yards continue to be improved to meet the requirements of the Hong Kong Convention. This slide shows the before and after of ship recycling yards in respect of a number of Hong Kong Convention compliant yards in two countries. We can say that an accelerated number of Hong Kong Convention compliant yards pushed the Indian government to ratify the convention last year. On the contrary, there is only one compliant yard in Bangladesh. However, we hope that the number could be increased by around 10 yards in next year, thanks to continued support by Norway and the IMO. This slide explains that the JSA is taking an active role in expressing the Asian ship owners' voice to the public through today's seminar and or trade wind seminar, etc. as a major member of the ASA's Ship Recycling Committee. Today's speakers are well known to me as long-time colleagues. We put on the slide the chain of ratification by Norway, Panama, Japan, and India. It can be said that each of the ratification in this chain was a significant step forward the early entry into force of the Hong Kong Convention. Everybody knows Norway acceded to the convention at first as a pioneer. Next, Panama, the world's largest registry, and then Japan, who has been dealing with Norway since the drafting of the convention, became the first ratifying country in Asia. And last year was India. Until Panama's ratification, the chain of ratification was stagnant and the future was uncertain. So we see Panama's ratification as a game-changing event. We met the President, the Foreign Minister, and the Minister of Maritime Affairs of Panama at the time, and directly requested them to ratify the convention. The road to the entry into force of the Hong Kong Convention is open. As Mr. Imai explained in his presentation, the key to entry into force is the ratification of ship recycling countries. From now on is the core part of my presentation. To meet the requirements by 2012, it all depends on China's ratification. We put "Look China" on top of this slide. Bangladesh has set the target timing for ratification as the first quarter of 2023. It will probably take some time. Pakistan has not even expressed their intention to ratify the convention clearly, and there is no concrete movement to improve yards to meet the requirements, so it will take much more time. China, who holds the key, has announced at home and abroad their willingness to be an environmentally advanced country. We hope that China, as a council member of the IMO, also is aware of their mission to take a leading role toward the conservation of the global environment. We also hope that all parties to the convention will work together with the IMO and continue to motivate China to ratify the convention while clearly expressing their expectation for China's positive action. The next slide starts with "Look Bangladesh." It is crucial to have Bangladesh ratification in first quarter of 2023 as declared. Do not be late. At the government level, as explained by Mr. Aftedal, the Norwegian government and the IMO's SenseRec project are leading the way. In order to accelerate the improvement, we request that the Japanese government be involved in the improvement activities, including the construction of TSDF. On our side, we continue to transplant to Bangladesh the knowledge about improvement cultivated in India and China. In order to achieve it, it is important to visit the local site and exchange opinions. Therefore, we hope that travel restriction due to the new coronavirus will be resolved as soon as possible. In addition, to motivate local yard operators to advance improvement activities, it is helpful to let them know that these activities will have a positive influence over their business as well. The accumulation of green recycling in India has already proved it, and we will continue to consider sending vessels to Hong Kong Convention compliant yard in Bangladesh as well. It is continued quality management that must not be forgotten toward the entry into force of the convention. Avoid profiling the fields and forgetting the seas. Most yards in India have already been HKC compliant, and some of them are investing more to meet the additional requirement required by EU SRR. But shouldn't we stop there? As with the improvement of yard facilities, the quality of operation must be improved. As shown in the figure on the lower left, it is important for all stakeholders to keep being aware of operational quality management. It should be noted that due to the new coronavirus, regular audit of yard operations are currently not possible. The goal is zero defects. Only when the goal is achieved can we say that the convention has produced a suitable outcome. On this slide, we'd like to express our expectation for India and Turkey, who have ratified the conventions. We hope that these two countries will continue to provide a strong foundation for our green recycling. In addition, as a contracting party, we expect both countries to show the achievements of green recycling developments to the world and non-contracting parties, increasing awareness of green ship recycling to the public. Furthermore, we would like them to accumulate experiences in compliance with HKC and greatly contribute to establish their safe and stable brand, which will lead to gaining the trust of ship owners. My final slide is a summary of the follow-up actions required for the entry into force of the Hong Kong Convention. Firstly, to encourage all stakeholders to be involved in actions for the early entry into force of the convention. Secondly, by providing vessel preferentially to Hong Kong Convention compliant yards to maintain and enhance the motivation of yard operators. Thirdly, and finally, transplant know-how on safe and environmentally friendly operation to Bangladesh, working with Team Japan and friendly countries such as Norway, and when it is resumed through local site visit to motivate accident-free operational activities. Thank you very much for your kind attention. This June, we received the Social Contribution Award from Japan Society of Marine and Engineering for our green recycling activities. Once again, we would like to thank all the people involved for their efforts. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tomoda-san. You truly deserved that award. And as I said, you have been instrumental in providing motivation to the yards by pushing the owners to deliver their ships to quality yards. I've had many ship recycling yards in Bangladesh and in India saying they're not looking for grants, they're looking for owners who are willing to recognize the good efforts made. And Japan, by doing so, the ship owners, especially from Japan, by doing so, have shown leadership, have shown to these yards that if you develop good standards, ship owners will come. And I hope, and others have followed since then. So I hope we do more of this now in Bangladesh so we can accelerate the development of yards there as well. Having gone from there, I want to introduce you to Dr. Rahim. Class NK has taken a very bold step when they started certifying HKC yards. As we often say here, I'm sure the upside was very low. The downside was quite high, meaning to be any class society to come ashore and start in the certification of yards is probably not easy. So thank you for taking the bold step, Dr. Rahim, and tell us what made you do that and how are things going for you and what's next. The floor is yours.
Can you see everything is okay?
Yeah, everything's fine, thanks.
Okay, so thank you very much for the introduction. And first of all, let me thank GMS for organizing this wonderful webinar, which will bring to the forefront the importance of environmentally friendly ship recycling. And today, from Class NK, what I want to talk to you about is the actions that Class NK has taken in introducing green ship recycling, that is to protect environment and the workers, as well as many other factors in the so-called ship recycling. As you know, as class society, we carry out technical verification of ship recycling facilities, and we issue statement of compliance in line with Hong Kong Convention. That is, for yards that fulfill the criteria satisfactorily will be given the statement of compliance. And we have issued guidelines in 2016 incorporating the IMO guideline, and the image of that is shown. It is available in our website, and those who are interested may download it. Now, there are different aspects for Hong Kong Convention, as Mr. Imai has said: environment, worker safety. Today, I want to highlight 2 points. The first one is worker safety and health compliance. As you know, ship recycling is not a clean industry. It is really, everybody is telling it is dirty industry. So it is associated with so many health and safety issues. So first and foremost, we have to identify key safety and health personnel in the yard, then assess the hazard associated with each yard, then how to prevent the adverse effects to human health, because this industry can create a lot of health issues, and I will introduce some of them. One is, say, for example, an enclosed space, or you have to do hot work in this environment. For that, we need a safe for entry certificate and a safe for hot work certificate. For this, the yards have to follow certain procedures. Then we verify how the items such as drums, containers, pressure vessels, and those dangerous items are kept or stored or disposed. Then prevention of falling from heights. So as you can see in the bottom right, we are putting guardrails around with visible marks so that it is easily identified, so that people don't fall from heights. Then next one is material handling and rigging equipment, because many times, because of the failure in rigging, say for example, giving away of wire ropes, accidents do happen. So how to avoid that and how to take care of this properly. Then of course, personal protective equipments like gloves, masks, safety shoes, then gas detectors, and all the other things. Then we also verify emergency preparedness and response plan in case something happens in the yard, then how to deal with that. Then fire and explosion prevention, detection, and response. So all these are associated with its own detailed procedures, and we verify it using drills and other means. Then coming to environmental compliance, we constantly monitor the environment periodically. Then the next big thing is management of hazardous materials. That is, how do you manage these hazardous materials once they are taken out of the ship? So for example, how to deal with asbestos or PCBs or ozone depleting substances or paint coatings, then hazardous liquids, residues, sediments, heavy metals, so on and so forth. Then prevention of adverse effect to the environment from these hazardous materials. So I am just highlighting 4 items. First is spill prevention, control, and countermeasures. I will come to that into a little more detail in the next slide. Then stormwater pollution prevention, then debris prevention and control, because ship recycling, during the dismantling process, a lot of debris is generated. So how do you prevent or reduce the generation of debris to the minimum and then control it? Then incident and spills reporting procedures. Now coming to spill prevention, control, and countermeasures. Ship has so many dirty blocks. I mean, if you split ship into small pieces, some blocks are clean and some blocks are dirty, and machinery is dirty, of course, very oily. And these oily or dirty items should not be placed at the intertidal zone without cleaning. That is the most important thing. Then they are to be transported to block cutting area with proper spill prevention. I will explain it. Say, for example, I look at the flow chart. This is how you are cutting a dirty block, or rather a block. First, you check whether the block is clean or not. If it is clean, you clean the cutting area, cut it, fall it into the ship or other area, and then bringing it to secondary cutting, then the tertiary cutting, and then storage and dispose. And going to the right, if the block is dirty, you try to clean the block. If it is cleanable, then again, it is fine. If it is not cleanable, then we have to clean just the cutting line first and take adequate precautions and fill these into the ship or some arrangement, barges or lifting it by lift or something, so that they don't touch the intertidal zone and they are directly transported to the secondary cutting area where you have impermeable floor, so that whatever contamination coming out of these blocks can be taken care of, and then it is sent to tertiary cutting and storage. Now coming to the key milestones, in 2012, we have issued the world's first statement of compliance in China. And in 2015, South Asia's first statement of compliance was issued in India. Then 2017, we added a statement of compliance in Turkey. Then in 2020, that is earlier this year, we issued a statement of compliance for the first time in Bangladesh. So as of now, the number of valid statement of compliance that we do is in India, 34 shipbreaking units, in Turkey, 3 shipbreaking units, and Bangladesh, 1. Now let me go into a little bit details about Bangladesh, because in Bangladesh we issued the first certificate this year, and we have teamed up with IMO and the Ministry of Industry in Bangladesh to develop a roadmap to help the ship recycling facilities in Bangladesh to comply with Hong Kong Convention. So in January last year, in 2019, our team went in and we investigated 6 yachts, 6 ship recycling facilities, 2 on the top tier, 2 medium tier, 2 in the lower category. And these are the photos shown at the bottom. And then, based on the gap analysis and investigation, we prepared the guidance for the ship recycling facilities on key improvements to reach Hong Kong Convention compliance level in 4 years, because 4 years was the target set at that time by the Bangladeshi government for the ship recycling yards to get the certification. So we have developed this guidance in collaboration with IMO and the Ministry of Industry, and of course the ship recycling yards and other authorities. And this is the example of the first yard that we certified in Bangladesh. As you can see here on the left side, top side, that is a yard. And as you can see, the procedures, the one gas cutter is operating under the supervision of a supporter. That's a very good arrangement. And also this particular ship recycling facility has its own hospital, small clinic with in-house ambulance, and a doctor is also on duty all the time. And then we have carried out extensive interviews with the workers to verify their understanding of the whole ship recycling process and how is it done in these yards. And also we have witnessed quite a number of drills. One is the evacuation drill from the ship being dismantled. And once everything was confirmed, we have issued the statement of compliance in early this year to a PHP shipbreaking yard in Bangladesh. That's in Chittagong. This is the first yard that we are certifying, and the first yard in Bangladesh to get the statement of compliance to HKC. So in a nutshell, Class NK, we keep on encouraging safe and environmentally sound ship recycling through third-party verification. Now, as I mentioned, we have been in India, we have been in Japan, China, Turkey, India, now in Bangladesh, and also the number of yards that are applying for Hong Kong Convention compliance is on the increase. We are currently also working with a number of yards which will be certified in due course once the conditions are met. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rahim. That was quite a journey, taking us from China to India, Turkey, and Bangladesh. We'll save some questions for later on. Let me turn it over to Dr. Michaelis, who needs very little introduction for those who are involved in ship recycling. Dr. Michaelis, the floor is yours. You are on mute, Dr. Michaelis, if you would unmute yourself.
Thank you. Merchant shipping is an international business, and for these reasons, it must have its regulations globally applying to all ships of all flags wherever they are trading. This is the only way to ensure level playing field where safety and environmental protection does not play any part in competition. In 2009, IMO adopted Hong Kong Convention intended to be the unified standard that controls the recycling of ships. In the same way as SOLAS regulates the safety and MARPOL the environmental protection. It would be irrational if international shipping was regulated by more than one and by competing standards. If a section of our society believes that a standard ought to be upgraded, they should seek to amend the convention at IMO after it enters into force. People ask why it has taken 11 years to satisfy only part of the conditions for entry into force, and why are flag states reluctant to ratify the convention they adopted. To understand why, we must first need to recognize that the nature of the convention is very different from other IMO conventions. Whereas the requirements of most IMO conventions applied to ships are enforced by flag states and are uniformly policed by post-state control, on the other hand, in ship recycling, the requirements of HKC are primarily directed to recycling yards, most of which are located in just 4 countries, of which the 3 with the largest capacity are in South Asia. Most of the individual yards are small, and much of the industry could be described as cottage industry. The yards to which HKC is directed are physically and metaphorically many, many miles away from IMO and from its international conventions. HKC cannot work until enough yards embrace it and implement its standards. And that is the intention of the third condition for its entry into force. I have visited many times the ship recycling centers of India and Bangladesh and have experienced firsthand how seemingly impossible this prospect appeared at the beginning and how painfully slow the industry's conversion has been. By now, 15 countries have ratified or acceded to the convention, whose fleet represents 29.5% of the world's fleet and whose recycling capacity in 2020 is 13.9 million gross tons. The conditions will have been fully met, and the countdown to the 24 months to entry into force will start when either China, together with Hong Kong, accede, or Bangladesh plus one of the leading open registers accede. Bangladesh, thanks to support from Norway and IMO, has been working to bring its ship recycling industry up to the standards of HKC, and the Ministry of Industries has developed and is implementing supporting legislation. The ministry has also declared its aim to accede to the convention by 2023. Whereas the upgrade of the large recycling industry of Bangladesh will be a major step towards establishing Hong Kong Convention as the global standard and will provide the shipping industry with ample compliant capacity, when considering how distant 2025 is, it appears that it is now very timely for China to take the lead and bring the convention's entry into force. Many countries did put a lot of effort in the development of the convention's guidelines. Norway was the first to propose the development of the convention for ship recycling in the late 90s, and then in 2006 submitted the first draft of what was to become HKC. It also provided chairman for many sessions of working correspondence groups during the development of the convention. Since then, it has been funding a project to assist Bangladesh to raise the standards of its recycling industry. Japan deserves special recognition from all those who care about the improvements of standards in the ship recycling industry and the establishment of HKC as the globally accepted and enforced standard. With an impressive team of experts, Japan contributed at every IMO meeting throughout the 6 years that took to develop the convention and its guidelines. Since the adoption of HKC, Japan has not stopped promoting the entry into force of the convention with seminars and missions aiming to convince more countries to accede to the convention. It was in 2014, I think, that I joined the Japanese mission to India, which included the ministry, the Japanese Shipowners Association, Class NK, and the Japanese Trade Union. I was privileged to witness the turning point in what has now become the voluntary adoption of HKC by the then highly skeptical ship recycling industry in Alang. The international shipping industry owes a lot to Japan's leadership in motivating and helping make HKC commercially viable to India's recycling industry. Japan's persistent efforts culminated in India's accession to HKC in November 2019. So what about the future? As alluded earlier, the focus must now be to help and encourage the industry in Bangladesh to embrace the standards of HKC. If Bangladesh joins Turkey and India, who are already committed to HKC, Pakistan will not afford to be the only country left operating below the standards of HKC. The government of Bangladesh has made a lot of progress in understanding the new convention, in becoming aware of the reasons why their industry needs to upgrade, and in making legislative changes in line of HKC. Next, there are two immediate main needs across the industry. A, the systematic training of the whole workforce together with registration of each and every worker. And B, the construction of a treatment, storage and disposal facility to take all hazardous waste from the industry. Some notable progress has been made under the Norwegian funded project, and it's understood that the Ministry of Industries is undertaking the development of the TSDF. It is also understood that Japan may be providing some technical expertise to help these works. At the same time, individual yards will have to invest in improvements in the infrastructure of the facilities and their working methods and the employment of trained personnel. A shining example of an exceptional recycling facility in Bangladesh is PHPC breaking and recycling industries, which has shown what can be achieved. It's sincerely hoped that Japan can extend its good influence also to Bangladesh to justify PHP's investments and to further encourage other recycling yards. Finally, a few words need to be said about the interaction between Hong Kong Convention and the Basel Convention. Most countries have ratified the Basel Convention and are obliged to implement it. Although early conference of the parties of the Basel Convention considered that end-of-life ships could fall under its scope, it eventually recognized that there are practical problems in using the convention to regulate ship recycling, and for that reason, its COP7, with Decision 726, requested IMO in 2004 to develop a standalone convention for ship recycling. In 2011, an attempt was made to establish the equivalency between the two conventions so that ships under the scope of one convention would not fall under the scope of the other. Two small countries with no shipping nor ship recycling interest opposed the agreement, so unanimity was not achieved, and therefore decision Basel Convention 10/17 was ambivalent in applauding HKC while also suggesting that countries can continue to apply Basel Convention to end-of-life ships. In December 2019, the ban amendment of the Basel Convention entered into force, forbidding the export of hazardous waste from developed to developing countries. NGOs opposed to the ship recycling industry in South Asia have subsequently increased their efforts to have the ban amendment along with the Basel Convention applied to ships and for port states to detain any ships destined for recycling in non-OECD countries, which after all recycle 92% of the world's tonnage. The only way to resolve the uncertainty this creates to the shipping industry and to Hong Kong Convention is for a future COP of the Basel Convention to formally agree that the two conventions are equivalent and therefore ships that fall under the scope of HKC do not fall under the scope of Basel. For this to happen, a government or a number of governments will need to formally submit a proposal to be discussed at a COP. Most probably the best time to do this will be when the three conditions of HKC have been fulfilled, and we are waiting for the 24 months to elapse until the convention enters into force. I thank you very much for your attention.
Dr. Michaelis, thank you. As I said, cautioned the audience, we were supposed to close right now. I'm going to take the liberty of staying over by another 15 minutes because we never got the time for some questions. If I may, the one question I keep on seeing on my screen that is coming up again and again is, why is China, Bangladesh, and Pakistan not adopting the Hong Kong Convention? Before I just see if one of the panelists want to answer that, I think I want to bring the audience attention to one factor, that the Hong Kong Convention was ratified about 10 years ago, or more than 10 years ago. But if you heard the presentations, from Class NK and Japan Shipowners Association and the other panelists, the real certification started in 2015 in India, when the first yard was certified according to HKC. So I think a lot of progress has been made pretty much in the 5 years, because we needed the major recycling countries to show that. And so if 2015 to 2020, we have more than 40 countries and India ratifying it in 2019. And as most speakers said, what's important now is for China and Bangladesh to come on board. I do hear my son saying Bangladesh probably should be, ratifying the convention in 2023 and perhaps China in 2022. So I hope if that happens, then, and with one more, registry, hopefully Liberia, we are in the home run. But I want to see maybe Sven, if you can share some of that. What's your view on this? Because that's the most recurring question I have.
Okay, thank you for raising that question. It's indeed an important one. Let me try to explain how this goes on in the various countries. Now, in order to be a party to a new convention, most countries need to have a government decision and they need to have a decision by the parliament. So that is, a process which goes on within the various countries. And then in order to take that forward, you need to have the willingness of the government. And also you need to have everything in place. You need to have the legislation in place. And also you need to be in a situation where you can meet the requirements. And to take the example of Bangladesh, I think now we can observe the willingness of the government, which is there. That is very good. That is a basis. But I think they are not completely ready to ratify, because they need to be in a situation where they can meet the requirements. They need to have the standards, and they need to ensure that they have the standards. They need to be sure that they have can enforce them and do this properly. So I think they will come on board, but they need to do a little bit more of their homework first. When it comes to Pakistan, I don't know. When it comes to China, I think there are various considerations, but this is I think for Bangladesh a time issue. When are they ready to really come on board and meet the requirements of the convention? And then I think you will have the government decision and the parliament decision. Okay.
Thanks for that. So I assume, Dr. Rahim, that if more yards were certified in Bangladesh, that should accelerate or at least influence that decision. I mean, how long does it take typically for a yard to get statement of compliance from Class NK?
We have an elaborate procedure to certify yards, and as a whole, it might take about minimum 1 year from the start to get a yard certified, because there are different stages involved. First, the yard has to undergo a preliminary investigation. That is, you have to through 1 or 2 ships recycling, actual recycling. Then based on that, they have to make a report of actual recycling. Then along with the ship recycling facility plan, which they will be producing, they have to apply. That is when Class and case work begins. Then the document review takes minimum about 2 months, because you have to go through a lot of documents. Then the site inspection, it can be anything from 3 months onwards. So as a whole, it takes about 1 year to get the certification. So if the Bangladeshi yards need to do this, I think some of the yards are already into it, but the class and case certification process is yet to start. So at least it is 8 months to 1 year away before any of the Bangladeshi yard, the second yard, gets certified by NK.
Is it possible for you to say, Dr. Rahim, how many of these yards are within the, let's say, 6-month window or 1 year window at this stage?
I think it is
in
very,
Bangladesh?
at moment, it is very difficult to say, because unless we get the application, then only it kicks in. We can predict. But what I heard is about 3 or 4 yards are in the process, but I'm not sure about it.
I see. Okay, because that obviously goes a long way. Now, Mr. Tomoda-san, the Japanese ship owners are willing to send ships to Japan, to Bangladesh, as long as the yards have the S statement of compliance. Would it be accurate to assume?
Yes, it's correct. We are willing to have a multiple number of countries where our ship can be recycled in safety and environment friendly manners. As somebody knows, latest status affected negatively by COVID-19. Because of that, movement, domestic movement by ship's crew is considerably facing the obstacle, because government restrictions for that. Then status of such restriction may not same degree by each country. Because of that, we need to have always alternative place to put our vessel for ship recycling. That is one of the reasons. And also, from point of economical reason, the selling price of vessel will be dependent on the local demand of steel and currency, etc. Demand and supply. The status is not same by each country. We wanted to sell the vessel at a good price anyway, as a private company. Therefore, for both aspects, we are willing to have the multiple number of countries where we can put our vessel. And I'm sure Bangladesh can be the positive candidate after India, because enthusiasm of government and ship recyclers there, and also good advisor, Norway, and I hope Japan will help for that. Thank you very much.
Yes, Tomoda-san, when you went to India, the yards there were giving 10% lower price than the HKC yards. We are seeing pretty much that happen in Bangladesh as well, and then the margin keeps on shrinking. The Norway program there, is that cash? Is it technology that Norway is providing there in Bangladesh? To what are you guys really doing? Can you tell us about the program you mentioned as its SenseRec program?
Yes, thank you. This is a program we are doing it in cooperation with the IMO. So we are providing funds into the project, and it is coordinated by the IMO, and it's taking place in Bangladesh. So far, it's not big money. It is between $3.5 to $4 million US, meaning that we have concentrated that Bangladesh need to have some basic elements in place. They need to have legislation in place. They need to have a training program for workers in place. all the type of, knowledge-based and capacity-based functions which need to be there in order for them to become a party. Now we are specifically going into the establishment of a facility for treatment, storage and disposal of hazardous waste, which is a key issue for Bangladesh to have in place in order to be a party to the convention. And we are providing technical assistance in order for them to be enabled to have it established in the right way. And also, of course, they need to have the funding in order to establish it. So in broad terms, it is we are more into software upgrades rather than hardware investments. But so far, it's close to $4 million US.
Thank you,
okay.
Thank you, thank you for that, Mr. Maisan. You have put you said about 80 million as program for India. Is that I think it's a loan? I think. What is this in India you are doing with this 80 million? What is this for?
Yes, it is for ship recycling facility to upgrade their equipment, making concrete floors and buying incinerator, trains and so on. It is provided by Japan International Cooperation Agency. It's provided to the government of India. I think that's.
So they apply to the Indian government or they apply to you for that loan?
They apply to the government because the my understanding is that the ground of the facilities is owned by the Indian governments, and we are providing to the Indian government. Okay.
Well, there are about 20 other questions, but Dr. Michaelis, I didn't get a chance to ask you because I always consider you as the regulatory expert. One thing, because you have been working at the IMO and you've spent a lot of your years in doing the HKC, and now you're looking at the EU ship recycling regulation. What do you think? All this work that has gone in HKC, and it's all positive in my eyes, and all this we hear about EU ship recycling, it seems to be more critical. And what I'm seeing at the ground level is, for example, cruise ships. A lot of cruise ships are being recycled, and for headline risk perspective, most of these ship owners prefer to go to EU yards in Turkey. Turkey has run out of capacity. And there are now ships that are being laid up in Greece and elsewhere, waiting for the capacity to open. And I hope that doesn't happen in Bangladesh and in India, where we have more certified yards. So how do you see this? Is there a contrast between HKC, EUSRR? How can we learn? What's your advice in all of this?
My view, which I've discussed very openly for a long time, is that Europe, for purely reasons of its own, which are mostly political, is trying to set its own standards. It feels that it has to have a better standard than others. And that's why they've taken HKC and they have developed EUSRR with the idea that it, on one hand, helps HKC's entry into force, but on the other hand, the moment the European Commission has taken over implementing it, they have interpreted the word of the regulation in a way that implies higher standards. And one prime example is what's happening in India. In India, there have been something like 15, 20 yards who've applied, and none of them has yet been approved. At one moment, on one point, it appeared that they would never be approved. And one reason is the opposition of Parliament and Green Party in European Parliament and the NGO. But on the other hand, there is a legal kind of complication that the entry into force of the Ban Amendment of Basel has brought in, which means that if Europe approves yards in India outside OECD, they will contradict the Basel Convention. I believe that things are going to change because, first of all, Europe has realized after 3 years of having the EUSRR in force that without capacity beyond Turkey, the regulation does not work and it will flop. And they must have seen a lot of ships that change flag near the end of their life, from European flag moving to other flags and ending up in an uncontrolled manner, recycling wherever they like. So I believe the European Commission, although they have not spelled it out openly so far, I believe that they're about to change their way of working. And I believe that they are going to have a bilateral agreement with India on the back of Basel Convention that would allow them to export ships under the USRR. And there is a document that the European Commission submitted to member states that does exactly that. It suggests that maybe we could have Article 11 of Basel Convention, which allows bilateral agreements to supersede the requirements of Basel Convention or to be parallel to those as exceptions, so that it could be that Europe is trying to do that. But for me, that again will be a problem because Europe will not accept Hong Kong Convention standard. It has its own interpretation, and then they will approve 5, 6 yards in India. That confuses everybody, adds a spike to the wheel, because there should be only one standard. You can't have 2 or 3 standards.
Thank you. Thank you, Nikos. Am I on mute? No, thank you for that thing. Gentlemen, I think my audience share that. I see most of them are still online. There's just so much to discuss, but I appreciate you all have meetings to go to and things to attend. So I'm not gonna do that. We will follow up. We will stay in touch. We will follow up the questions that I could not answer. In conclusion, I just wanted to thank all of you for taking this time. I know you have lots of things to do, especially during this COVID-19, for being here. My only concluding comment here is that people are, as Alan Greenspan once said, people are entitled to their own opinions, but not their own facts. Fortunately, the world realizes, the significance of sustainability, and the business community has begun to adopt, ESG practices. A few years ago, we heard about at the Global Maritime Forum, the Poseidon principles, and Citibank took a lead in that one. Yesterday, there was a virtual conference of GMF where they prioritized reduction in carbon emissions, and with a goal to achieve full decarbonization in less than 30 years. In today's circular economy, ship recycling, we used to call ship breaking, ship recycling. It's actually a circular economy, because in a circular economy, the terms reduce, reuse, and recycle are become critical for the well-being of a fragile planet. I think my son showed that, the circle of a ship. So nothing can be more important in the ship and offshore recycling universe than the safe and environmentally sound recycling issues that are really core to HKC. And as Dr. Michalis just said, there can only be one regulation. And this is the only, and he also explained why it has been a struggle to get HKC adopted, because the enforcement is pretty much at the yard level. Unfortunately, the one particular NGO and its team of lawyers, lawmakers, reporters have done, in my belief, a great injustice to this world by relentlessly misrepresenting the facts and creating an environment that is toxic and destructive and untrue. I ask just everybody to rise and investigate the facts. Please form your own opinion. And I hope these panelists who have worked 2 decades or about that time in this industry have demonstrated what they've done. So I thank my panelists for representing what I call the good in humanity and helping us uncover some of the facts today. Thank you again, and please all stay safe. Thank you.